The SEC and the Big Ten announced Friday that they were entering into what they call a partnership, not an alliance. Don't call it an alliance. We know what happens when you have an alliance in college football. Ask the Big Ten, ask the ACC, ask the Pac-12. RIP Pac-12, by the way. So this is a partnership. What is this? What does it actually mean for those of you who were living your lives Friday and you weren't glued to the internet? Well, I will tell you exactly what it means and what it doesn't mean in just a second. But you know what I can now do? I'm very glad this is happening in really late winter, not even early spring, because I thought I was going to have to wait a little while on this. Colin, could you do me a favor? Could you hit the not so way back machine? Let's go back to December 30th, 2023, in Los Angeles, California. I was out there for the Rose Bowl. You have heard me, if you've listened to or watched the show lately, you heard me speak about this little moment several times. I didn't just go out there to California. You get to go out there and you get to be around a lot of people who are movers and shakers in the college football world. And right there at 8:20 p.m. that night, I tweeted the following. I am very confident big changes are coming to college football. Multiple tipping points have been hit. I don't know when or how yet, but very powerful people seem aligned in their belief that something big is imminent. This was one of them. It's not the only one. This is one of them. I know this whole Big Ten SEC thing may seem a little reactive. I would call it more the sit and wait approach. They've known where they're headed with this. Tony Pate in the Big Ten, Greg Sankey in the SEC, they've known where they're headed with this for quite a while. Now, you can either do one of two things. You can either come out on a random Tuesday afternoon, independent of nothing, and say, we're in this together now. Or you can, behind the scenes, work things that you need worked and then wait for something to blow up. This is college athletics. Something blows up every other day. The NCAA is investigating several programs for NIL, you say? Big Ten, you ready? SEC, you ready? All right, let's go public. Seemingly in reaction. Very well played from a PR perspective. I don't necessarily buy it, but it's very well played in that it looks like these two reacted to some overreach from the NCAA last week. You know, the Tennessee investigation, and they're looking into several other programs. Those will be made public in due time. It's irrelevant because the NCAA will probably get taken to the cleaners legally 9 ways from Sunday, as I've said many times. So forget about that. And I am not buying that this was reactionary to that. But the 50,000-foot view is it doesn't matter if it was reactionary or not. We got it. The Big Ten and the SEC have locked arms. They're done messing around. I've been telling you this for months now. It's exactly what I was talking about in that tweet. And there are a couple other big dominoes coming, and one of them will take about another year to fall, and it's going to happen in a courtroom. So in the meantime, you got the SEC and you got the Big Ten locking arms saying, enough people are mad. And you know how you've probably watched the state of college football, and I have as well, and you've probably yelled a time or two, why isn't anyone doing anything? And you've probably yelled a time or two, why isn't anything changing? Well, the answer to those questions is usually it hasn't gotten bad enough yet. It can be that way in your neighborhood. It can be that way in politics. It can be that way in sports. When something's happening that you don't like, and then more and more people don't like it, it just has to get bad enough. Once it gets bad enough, something will be done about it. And college football and college athletics have finally gotten bad enough. And now people are doing something about it. Now, there's a lot that's still nebulous about this. In fact, Ross Dellinger, who, by the way, I would highly recommend you read on anything to do with these matters, because he is very, very well sourced on this. He had a pretty lengthy piece on Yahoo Sports Friday in which he was quoting Greg Sankey. And Greg Sankey was making sure to caution everyone. Now, this is not us trying to break away from the NCAA. This is not an effort to secede the SEC and the Big Ten away from the NCAA. And they were very, very direct in that language. Well, we'll see on that. You know, I happen to believe midterm to long term that will happen. And I don't really care what was said in that article. It's accurate reporting. It is an accurate representation of the quote. But you see, planning to and meaning to versus ending up doing something, totally different things. If you've ever had to put down a pet, which most of us have, Did you ever enter the year leading up to it saying, I plan to put my pet down this year? No, 99% of you had it come up on you within weeks or maybe a month or two, and it sucks and no one wants to do it, but you do it anyway. Why? Because you're out of options. And the alternative is something that's unacceptable. I don't doubt that Greg Sankey, who is kind of a lifer in this business, and I don't doubt that Tony Pate, who has been around the block several times, would love to see status quo, would love to see some form of a higher governing body maintained so that they don't have to take all this on their plate. But there's what you want, and then there's what ends up being feasible. And what ends up being feasible, maybe not in 2024, but 27 or 28 or 25, could be maybe not quite aligned with what they want. So there's what you want. You can want in one hand, as Meemaw would say, and I'll let you finish her quote. But you can also have situations that dictate you have to take forceful action. The difference is no one's taken forceful action yet, and now you got a couple of entities here that can take forceful action. The rest of the college football and college athletics world will go downstream of what the SEC and the Big Ten do. Now, what does that mean? It could mean many things. And I don't necessarily know that even Greg Sankey and Tony Pate have some solidly penned out game plan. It may be written in varying degrees of pencil because you got to be able to erase and you got to be flexible here. But here's the bottom line for you as a fan and for me. You don't need to get lost in the legal weeds. You just need to understand if you don't think there's enough structure in college football right now, it's coming. Structure's coming. It will be for the better overall. It will not make everyone happy, but it is in the process of happening. And that wheel is in motion now. Now, I will also tell you that if we go back to that tweet I was talking about for a second, this is not the only big domino to fall. In fact, this is probably a domino that is a precursor in understanding others are going to fall. And guys, I know it sounds like I'm just talking about these NCAA investigations. I'm talking about the NCAA. And I'm talking about some other very, very looming challenges for that organization and for college athletics in general. I mean, there are a lot of things that seem to be over in different compartments happening in college athletics right now. You look at NIL, and then your buddy could be looking at NCAA investigations, and then your other buddy could be looking at a class action lawsuit that's being brought in the 9th District Court of Northern California, and you could think to yourselves, wow, look at these 3 stories. It's not 3 stories. That's one story. It all wraps around. It all eventually bleeds down into what will culminate in what the future of college athletics looks like. I say that vaguely because it is vague, but I'm telling you there's some pretty existential threats to the current way of doing things that Greg Sankey knows and Tony Pate knows and major networks know are coming. And if it means that things as they have been dissolve, then so be it. You got to position yourself for having the best path moving forward. And this was a gigantic step in doing that. Could get worse before it gets better. It will get better. It will get better. I put on the thumbnail for the show tonight. College football will win the battle. I think college athletics and college football will win the war. It's a war that has sort of been self-inflicted and self-ignited over decades of inaction, but I think we'll be okay. It's just that world's going to look a whole lot different, and figuratively, there will be casualties. There will be people, there will be universities, there will be programs that have to fall along the wayside for the greater good of college athletics. But just remember, and I'll leave you with this, and I'm moving on to other things. Remember this. A lot of people forcefully banged the drum for change in college athletics over the last decade. And it was done in the name of things like players' rights, and it was done in the name of many, many different things. And I was okay with it, even if I didn't agree with it, because you know what? You can want whatever you want. You can fight for whatever you want to fight for. The thing that I kind of tried to say on the show is I may not get it in the moment, but I do understand you cannot get the changes that you're claiming you want consequence-free. You know, if you have an action over here, there may be an equal and opposite reaction somewhere. Well, I think one of the biggest warning flares that a lot of people tried to send up and continue to try and send up in vain about fundamentally altering the face of college football and college athletics is, what if you get the changes you want to the detriment of other sports? And I think that is very, very close to happening. I think there are some athletic directors out there who know that's close to happening. I think there are some ADs who understand in the next couple of years they're going to have to make some very, very painful announcements about non-revenue generating sports. That's coming. That's coming. Some announcements you thought you'd never hear, because the model for a long time looked to be that those non-revenue generators would be subsidized until the end of time by revenue generators like football. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. I didn't want that, but that may be where we're headed. And hey, that's not the end of the world now. That just means money has to come from somewhere else. That's all that means.